Alrighty, welcome back everyone. So I know it's been a while since the last vid, I'm sorry about that, but today we're gonna go ahead and talk about how you can get the final set of these special global dragon stones from the GDC campaign. And of course, I'm talking about these stones right over here. We've been able to get these stones for quite some time, but with part 2, we now have access to the part 2 missions, which give us our final set of these stones, helping us reach our grand total of 100 of these awesome beauties right here, which as you can see, I already have. So today, specifically, we'll go ahead and talk about what the part 2 missions are, how easy are they, what you need to do to beat them, and also later in the vid, I'll go ahead and share with you guys my overall thoughts on our part 2 Super Easy A. So Mega Shenron, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, because even though I didn't cover the Super Easy A's when their kit details dropped, a lot of people have really enjoyed the Super Easy A's, and because of that, a lot of people are understandably interested in terms of the value of those characters, especially because you can find them in this store right down here. So we'll go ahead and talk about that today. Hopefully you guys will enjoy the video. If you do, show your support down below, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below your thoughts. And before I forget, let me just say thank you all so much for your support. About a week or so ago, we managed to hit 300 subs, which is obviously a very awesome milestone, and it is because of you guys. So thank you all so much for the support you guys have been showing to the channel and everything. I really can't express enough gratitude. Like, it's really like, you know, it's kind of cliche to say that, but it is true. So thank you all so much for your support there. But with that all being said, let's go ahead and get back to the vid. Now, before we go ahead and talk about the missions and everything, let me go ahead and just talk about some general information that everyone needs to keep in mind, which is the same thing that I said in the previous vids talking about this whole kind of focus. But the first thing we need to talk about is that no one, and I mean no one, including myself, should spend these stones right now, and there are a couple of reasons why. The first thing is that we still have plenty of time to make this decision. At least at the time I'm recording this, we have 18 days to decide who we want to pick up with these stones. So obviously with that in mind, there is still time to see what happens, which characters we need, which characters we want, how the meta changes. There is still a lot of time to see how things unfold. So because of that, it is in everyone's best interest, I would say, to wait and see how things unfold for your own personal accounts, for the game and everything, before making a decision on who you should pick up, or who you would like to pick up at least. The other reason, and this kind of goes in tandem with what I just said, is that in this interim period that we wait and everything, we still can see how our summons unfold. For a lot of us, we're still going to be summoning for all the different characters and the different banners. Because of that, that means there is still opportunities for us to get a variety of different characters, a variety of different teams unlocked, which we may not have had access to before. And because of that, that may change things in terms of which characters we now need or no longer need. So that's why I'm saying a lot of people, including myself, everyone should wait to see what happens with our accounts before we decide to spend these stones. The second thing is that, as you can see right here, every single character costs a total of 20 stones for a single copy of said character. Doesn't matter how good or bad they are, doesn't matter how old they are, if they're an LR or whatever, it doesn't matter. Every single character costs you 20 stones for a single copy of said character. Some characters you can get multiple copies of them, but still, it's 20 stones per copy. So important to understand there. Because of that, that means you can get up to a total of 5 copies of a variety of different characters. So important general kind of information to understand in that respect. Now, with all general information out of the way, now let's go ahead and kind of segue to the mission. So let me go ahead and move to my computer here, and let's talk about these missions right here in terms of what they are. So obviously we have Dokkan Info pulled up here. Great resource, by the way, guys. So if you guys, need information on different events and stuff, I recommend Dokkan Info as one of like a variety of different resources. It's really helpful for me. It's going to be helpful for you guys as well, I'm sure, in terms of information and stuff. So yeah, very nice resource. Anyways, so we have the missions right here. These are the countdown missions, of course, for those who do not remember. These are from like before the GDC even began. Then we have our part 1 missions, and then here we go. These are the part 2 missions, the final missions, if you will, for the final set of these special stones. So right here is the first one. Basically consume at least 50 stamina, and then every single mission beyond that is just consuming more and more stamina, up to 777 stamina in total. Now, a couple things important to know right here. You can use quests, you can do events and stuff. You have to consume the stamina. It doesn't matter if you beat the event or if you lose or whatever, it doesn't matter. But it does say right here, stamina will not be counted if it's used in the world tournament. Now, thankfully, we don't have a world tournament to even consider this as a technicality, but to be fair, they do mention that because that's just how they've designed things. But again, no world tournament, so nothing to really concern ourselves with in that respect. But basically, just like with part 1, just like with the countdown missions and everything, these are so easy to access. Every player can do this, and there is no reason why anyone should miss out on these stones, because literally every mission has been very straightforward. This is probably, you could argue, the hardest mission in terms of like all the different missions. This is probably the hardest one you can argue from like the countdown, and even then you just have to take like one really busted character and you should be able to get this pretty easily, like realistically. So yeah, I mean, the missions have been very easy. Basically, yeah, you just gotta do different events. Now, challenge events, difficult content where there is dragon stones but no energy spent, they will not count towards this. So, you know, you could be beating the hard content all you want, but if there is no stamina used, it doesn't matter. So obviously, you know, a great way to, there's a couple different stages that are really good in terms of value, I would say, to kind of like get like 2 birds for 1 stone with this. But yeah, like you could do story quest modes and stuff. You could just farm different free-to-play characters. You could be doing like training in the clouds. You could do whatever. And as long as you're spending stamina, you'll get this done. So just important to know right there. Let me go ahead and just like move back to my phone right quick. So we'll go ahead and like show you guys what I did to kind of beat the missions, because I inadvertently did these missions without even paying attention to what they were. But for me, and this is what I probably would say a lot of people should be doing if you guys have not done so already, is you can go right here to like the kind of main section right here, and down here we have training in the clouds, which is obviously a very great like stage. A lot of people have been recommending it because it gives a lot of high link level rate. I believe the link level rate is 7 for the stage and everything, so that gives you a lot of opportunity, of course, to like link level your characters, get them to link level 10 and stuff. A lot of different benefits. But as you can see right here, it costs you 40 stamina just for a single run of this stage, which to be fair is kind of expensive, but at the same time, because you're doing the link leveling and stuff, like it's very easy to just kind of blitz through this whole kind of stage, like going on and on and on. And all of a sudden, without even realizing it, you'll get those missions done for the stamina because you're just farming, and you're just doing farming and farming, and you just don't even realize it. So, you know, it's very simple, very straightforward. You know, there really is no limitation to doing this. You can even go to the growth stages, for example. Like you could beat these, like I still have to do these, by the way. You still have to do, you could do like the turtle hermit school stuff, like the training and stuff, the Wii like stages. You can do all those different things, right? So, you know, a lot of different options. Now, again, let me just kind of show you guys what I'm talking about when I said earlier. These special challenge stages, even if you beat them and you want to beat them again, they don't cost any stamina, so there is no point to doing these for the sake of beating the missions themselves. Now, you can do them because there's other reasons like beating the content, but yeah, if you're trying to beat the missions, those won't help you. So, important to understand that right there. Now, let's go back to the computer, a bit of a back and forth there. Let's go back to the computer, because now with the missions kind of talked about and everything, now we can talk about these super easy A's for Goku, for Vegeta, and Omega Shenron, which honestly, you know, I will say I've tried Omega Shenron the least, but I will say he has definitely been one of the fun super easy A's throughout the entirety of this whole kind of campaign, and most of the super easy A's have been pretty good. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about these super easy A's. So we'll start with Super Saiyan 4 Goku. So for those who don't remember, you know, this was a long time ago. Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta were both part of the 2nd anniversary for Dokkan. So if you remember this, shout out to my fellow old heads, I guess. We're in this together, but yeah, I mean, it's been a while since this Goku was like new, like brand spanking new. Anyways, with the Super Easy and everything, even though it doesn't show right there, the Super Easy is right here. So with Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta, neither of them are really great when it comes to the leader skill. Now, they are, you know, decent in terms of stats. They're like side banner characters, but what they're covering is pretty bad, right? Super STR, Extreme STR for the other kind of buff right there. For Vegeta, it's gonna be Super AGL and Extreme AGL. It's not that great. You know, the typing leads and stuff, like the type leads and everything was like out of like meta for like years now, like maybe close to a decade now. So like the leader skill is not it. But the rest of the characters are still like really good, the passive skill and everything. When it comes to Super Saiyan 4 Goku, I will say, like, I'm not sure how I would rank the Super Easy A's quite yet. I still have to kind of think about that because I want to make a tier list on it. But when it comes to these three specifically, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, to me, and I think for a lot of people, is considered the best of the 3 Super Easy A's. Omega is probably the 2nd best, and then Vegeta, unfortunately, is like the 3rd best. Vegeta fans are not eating with this character compared to Goku, but you know, still Vegeta's like decent at minimum. When it comes to Goku though, the thing about him is, you see right here, he's able to boost his attack for 1 turn with a super attack. Also, you know, he's doing the debuffing. Raising defense by 30% for 6 turns is very powerful, especially because as a character, Goku wants to be in slot 1 or slot 2, meaning he wants to be kept on rotation. So you could take advantage of this and get basically like 3 turns of this kind of defensive stacking to take effect, which is really helpful, of course, you know, for an STR character who has built-in crit with this in potential system. He still has on top of that a great chance to do a crit, which is 70% chance right there. For super class ally, he's boosting his stats, boosting his damage reduction, not by the craziest amount. So, you know, on paper, this looks kind of like concerning, but still, he is managing himself quite well in a lot of situations. Also, I mean, you know, when there's another GT Heroes ally or when there's an extreme class enemy, he's providing a bunch of support, launching additional supers, able to further boost his defense, of course. You know, when receiving an attack, if it's a super or if it's a normal, he's boosting his defense again in slot 1 or slot 2, and with a super, he's also boosting his defense again, and he has a 50% chance to nullify and counter, which can do some pretty good damage. So, You know, Goku's been very nice. Obviously, his links are very good. Goku as a character, just great categorical diversity. He has been very awesome. And obviously, being under categories like Pure Saiyans, Earth Protecting Heroes, Power Beyond Super Saiyan, Giant Ape Power right here, GT Heroes right here, he's able to be a part of a bunch of the different meta teams and the meta character options and stuff. He could be under the Tech Super Vegeta lead, the AGL Super Gogeta lead, you know, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta lead, Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan 4 AGL Goku lead. Like a lot of the meta characters, he can fit in their teams. So that is incredibly valuable when it comes to him. So for me, and my money's worth, I will say, like anyone who's wondering like which is the best Super EZA of the three, for me, Super Saiyan 4 Goku definitely takes the title. I was initially concerned, but he has definitely proved himself to be better than what he looks like on paper. Like, you know, like the saying of like never judge a book by its cover. Goku, I think, is probably one of the better examples of that when it comes to the overall GDC Super EZA list. So credit to Goku there. Let's go ahead and talk about the second best Super EZA of the three, in my opinion, with Omega Shenron. So Omega Shenron, similar to like Goku and Vegeta, his lead is not it. STR typing, so a bit more general, but still 100%, like 100% the stats is terrible now. Ki +4 is okay, but still the stats are bad. Immense damage to the enemy is cool, and massively like lowering defense is really awesome in fights where that is applicable. There are certain fights where it benefits, but this isn't always usable. So in some cases, when you can't use it, then it does kind of suck. So you know, there is a bit of a situational kind of thing right there where sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not, but still the passive is the most important thing of all these different characters. So for Omega, not the craziest in terms of stats, but also like look here, he's debuffing all enemies, he's doing additional defensive debuffing for superclass enemies, he's giving great support to GT bosses and full power, plus additional you know, attack like boosting for characters who are also extreme class, which I think technically applies to all the GT bosses. I'm assuming that's just meant for full power extreme class more specifically, but still great right there. Basically that's what, 60% attack boost right there. That's pretty nasty. Also, per extreme class ally in the same turn other than himself, he's boosting crit chance, boosting his damage reduction, boosting his stats when attacking. When there's another full power GT boss ally in the same turn, which you want that because they get the support right here, he's boosting his own stats, having an additional that has a great chance to become a super, boosting stats again when he reaches 12 or more ki, and he wants to basically be a floater. He wants to be a slot 3 character or just face an opponent who can get debuffed so he can do additional supers and more damage. So the thing about Omega is he's different in terms of the role versus Super Saiyan 4 Goku, right? Where Goku, he wants to be on rotation. He wants to be involved. He wants to take on a brunt of the responsibility being on rotation. Omega, he's basically just saying, you know what, I don't care if I'm playing. You can go ahead and just put me off on floater and just whatever. But when I show up, I'm going to do business. I'm going to support. I'm going to help everyone out. And I'm going to keep it pushing. Now, I will say, my criticism of Goku and Omega so far is that both of them provide attack support, which is nice. I'm not mad at it. However, I would have liked if they also gave some defensive support as well, especially for Omega. I think that would be more nice. But yeah, defensive support would have been really helpful in my opinion. I don't think it's the end of the world that it's not there. But still, both characters are very powerful, very nice, and for both of them, like, they really do fit their roles really nicely. And, you know, for Omega, he still has some really great links, of course, in his own right, and being able to link with, like, all the other kind of Shenrons and stuff, that is very, very helpful. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't link with the most important Shenron, which is the new Omega Shenron. So he can't link with them because of the same name system right here. So it is unfortunate, but still, being a floater means you probably don't have to worry about that too much. So, you know, important things to kind of understand right there, but still, you know, it is what it is. Category wise, you know, he's on some good categories like Full Power, you know, Battle of Fate and Human Deeds. GT Bosses, I think, is on the come up, but it's still not perfect, I think, but still, you know, like, he's got some good stuff right there. So, you know, just kind of want to make sure to kind of mention those things right there. The last one to talk about, Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. So, I will say, like, this was the first Super EZA that I remember reading when the kit details dropped. This was the first one that got me, like, concerned about, like, how the Super EZA, like, how they were going to look. And I initially thought Vegeta was going to be better than Goku, as a lot of people thought, but unfortunately, it seems like Vegeta is kind of mid. Like, I think mid is probably the best way to describe Vegeta, because he's not bad, he's decent, but he's not like, wow, crazy good. Like, that's not Vegeta. Like, I would not say that to describe Vegeta, and I've seen a lot of cases, a lot of people just ranting on Twitter and stuff about how Vegeta in his best position is tanking worse than Goku in his worst position. So yeah, there's a lot of different situations. But anyways, with Vegeta, so the super attack effect, he's raising his defense. So of course, you know, he's the defense guy. That was the idea with him, doing damage, debuffing, raising attack by 30% for 6 turns, which is nice, of course, you know, getting that buff right there. But still, you know, he's initially, like, Vegeta was always considered to be the more defensive of the two Saiyans between him and Super Saiyan 4 Goku. So that was kind of like expected. With the basic, you know, he's got nice stats and everything. Additional has a great chance to become a super. He's the only AGL unit of the three, right? So the two STRs, they have 55% built-in crit. He has 55% additional right there. So, you know, more attack boost and everything potentially per superclass ally. Same thing as with Goku, boosting stats, boosting damage reduction. Extreme class or GT heroes ally and stuff, when that condition's met, he's boosting all allies' defense, which is nice, of course. Performing a crit guaranteed, so that's nice. Built-in crit, you don't need to do that with this hidden potential build. With 12 or more keys, boosting his stats as the second or third slot character, so he can be fine as a floater technically. He'll boost his stats. When receiving a super, this is kind of the interesting thing about Vegeta. When receiving a super, he's boosting his defense and has a high chance to nullify and counter. The 50% chance to counter and stuff, that's fine. But the thing about Vegeta is, because he wants to be floated off basically a slot 2 or slot 3, most times he wouldn't find himself facing a super, but there are certain cases when it can happen, like the AGL Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta special battle fight and stuff, where initially Gogeta supers in slot 2 and slot 3, so Vegeta would face those supers, but he doesn't seem to tank as well as Goku does. And I think I do know the reason why, which ironically is because I think it's just due to the fact that Goku is able to raise his defense multiple times for like various turns, and then with that sort of combination, he's just able to handle himself a lot better. Also on top of that, you know, when we do like the math and everything, 200% to his stats right there for defense, plus another, you know, let's just count like per superclass ally, that should include himself, so 300 right there, so that's 500, 700 right there with this being met, so 700 to 800% to his stats, right? When we go to Vegeta, who is boosting his defense with his super attack effect, but ignoring that, 200%, 300% right there, that's the same. This 100%, I think that is pretty much the main reason why Vegeta is suffering, is because even though in theory he should be tanking fine because he got the supers, he just doesn't seem to handle himself well, probably because he's missing out on this defense right here, which would be quite beneficial for him. So yeah, it's kind of hard to say what is off with Vegeta. I think maybe just a bit more damage reduction would have helped him. I think in general, all these characters should have had a bit more damage reduction, but it is what it is. Still, all three characters are quite good at minimum, especially Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Omega. I think they're exceptionally good. Maybe not the best Super EZAs, but still really definitely up there. But, you know, there's a lot of different like opinions on these characters. A lot of people have been very interested in going after them for good reason. Again, all these characters can be found in the shop, so they will all cost you 20 stones for a single copy of them. They will not be EZA. So when you get a character, like whichever character, they will be Dokkan Awakened, but they will start off like this. So pre-EZA, if you were to go ahead and use this Vegeta as is, and you would be like, hey, why does he suck ass? That's because he doesn't have an EZA and his Super EZA activated. So you would need to farm the EZA, you would need to farm the Super EZA, get those done, and then you will see the performance of these characters as you've seen from different videos and stuff like that. So obviously, you know, important things to understand. Don't forget those things, because that is sometimes a trick that some people do forget, so it happens. But yeah, I mean, all these characters have great value, so I wouldn't say it's a bad call to go after those characters. Again, I plan to make a separate vid going into more detail on all of the characters who are good to go after for different reasons and stuff. But yeah, understand in general, these characters, not that bad at all. I wouldn't be mad going after them. I actually plan to probably go after one or two of them myself, I will say that. But you know, that's just kind of my thoughts on the characters, of course, my thoughts on the Super EZAs. Hopefully we have more Super EZAs coming soon. I've heard some theories that we may get a part 3 to GDC. I don't know if that's going to be true. I don't expect it to be. But if we do get a part 3 or a part EX with some more Super EZAs, maybe that will change some things as well, which is why, again, I'm saying no one should be spending their stones quite yet until we get to the very end and see what all has happened with the Global Dokkan campaign. Anyways, with that said, that's going to be where we wrap up the vid. Obviously, we talked about the part 2 Super EZAs, and we talked about the part 2 missions as well. I'm sure a lot of you guys have already beaten those missions without even realizing it, but hopefully this information will help you guys out even more. If you guys enjoyed the vid, again, show your support down below, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below your thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care, stay blessed, and I will see you all in the next one.